Today we are arguing against the right to be forgotten, also known and abbreviated as RTBF. On paper, this sounds great. People should be able to erase personal information that is old or even irrelevant. In the end, who wouldn't want a clean slate? When you really look at the right to be forgotten, we can gather some insight into what it means. It is littered full with ethical problems, technical issues, and consequences. It is less about protecting privacy than it is about censorship, rewriting history, and the burden placed on organizations and society.
For our first point, let's begin with the biggest issue. It goes against the freedom of speech and the public's right to know. Once a piece of information is published legally, it becomes part of the public record. The forcible removal of this information, especially from search engines, is basically censorship. The well-respected scholar Jeffrey Rosen states it as, "Compelling removal of truthful information is a form of censorship." Once you think about it, the right to be forgotten lets people decide what the rest of us can or cannot know, even if what they are removing is true. It is not about one person's privacy. Information can affect other people, victims, co-workers, or even the public. For example, a politician could get search results of all controversies removed. That hurts transparencies to the public. Freedom of expression protects truth, even if that truth is uncomfortable. Fundamentally, the right to be forgotten undermines that. Compounding on that, the right to be forgotten can be easily abused. The door is left wide open to selective memory, where people can pick and choose which parts of their past is online. A good example of this is the court case NT1 versus Google that happened in the UK. A man was convicted of fraud and wanted his name removed from search results because it was outdated. But the fact that he committed fraud is still true. It doesn't suddenly become irrelevant since he asked for it to be deleted. If we let individuals erase their pasts in this way, we are essentially allowing the courts to decide who has the right and who doesn't have the right to be remembered. That is no longer a matter of privacy, it is a matter of controlling history.
Let's ignore the ethics for a second. The right to be forgotten just doesn't work on a technical level. The internet does not forget. In fact, that was the point of the internet. Data is backed up, shared, and stored in dozens of places. Cloud storage, screenshots, web archives, or even reposts are all saved. Therefore, even if Google or another company deletes your data, the copies exist somewhere else. Privacy expert Alessandro Montellero calls this the illusion of privacy. It makes people feel like their data is gone, when in reality it is still out there. This comes to the point that the opposition is arguing to enforce a law that is feasibly impossible to achieve, giving people a false sense of security that cannot truly exist. Then there's the business side to it. Enforcing the right to be forgotten can put a huge burden on companies, specifically small companies. You will need to track down, verify, and delete every bit of user data across all of your systems. Not only is this super expensive, it can also easily be messed up. Big corporations might be able to handle it, but small businesses would struggle. The time and money could be better spent on innovation and building better products, not chasing digital ghosts. A law that is impossible to follow fairly does not exist to protect the people. It just hurts the wrong people.
The right to be forgotten could threaten the global integrity of the internet. European courts have debated whether Google should get rid of certain search results only within the EU or across the entire world. If removals happen only in Europe, people elsewhere can still view the content. This would include people using a VPN. However, if the deletions happen globally, it basically allows one region, like the EU, to dictate what information is available worldwide. This challenges the idea of an open and borderless internet, creating a web where access to information depends on geographic location. Philosopher Luciano Floridi warns that such a balkanization of online data weakens the internet's fundamental goal. That goal is to unite the people rather than separate them. So to sum it all up, the right to be forgotten at first sounds nice, but it has many problems. It limits free speech, lets people hide the truth, burdens honest companies, and could fragment the internet we all rely on. Instead of trying to erase the past, we should be teaching people how to live responsibly in the digital world. This would imply a future based on transparency and accountability, not deletion. Privacy matters, but it shouldn't come at the cost of truth.